Hey Nation, if you're looking for a shortcut, today's not the show for you. If you're stuck and you need a reason to get moving, today is the show for you. Rich Ingram, the guy's got a story. Stick around, coming up live. We're live with myself, Keith Bilous, and he's over there, Rich Ingram, soon. Now, coming up. Hi, I'm Keith Bilous, and this is Live in the Lab. All right. A little bit of weirdness in front of the camera there for anybody who's watching. So I'm like, hey, where's the button? Where's the button? I can't get it going. How did you go viral on TikTok? You were on America's Got Talent. How much did you get paid to be on AGT? Oh, you didn't get paid. Keith and Steve here in Live in the Lab.
You're a great interviewer. I love it.
48 miles, 48 hours. And not just once. You ain't seen nothing yet. I hit 50 last time, and I'm like, yeah, things are a little different than they were 10 years ago. So trust me, things are to keep. You have no time for the BS that much of society seems to put on the table. Why is that? What you're talking about is real right now. There's just no bullshit here, but it's just real. We brought you in with some Marley. I said, Joseph, let's talk music for a second. You said, Keith, oldies, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I've never talked to a sir before. Why are you a sir? In many ways, we're the same story. I came from nothing. You came from nothing. I think the old saying goes that if you want a trophy, you climb Everest. If you want respect, you climb K2. I've built an AI myself, and it's pretty fascinating when you can have a conversation with yourself with your own knowledge. Have you done that before? Why are we rushing to make these tools if they're all they're going to do is hurt humanity? Does the world need an Oppenheimer moment with AI?
What a fun show.
What's going on, Nation? Hey, you got the uncle. That's me, Uncle Keith, joining you in the lab today, live in the lab. Where's the audio? I gotta turn it down a little bit. Coming up here today, Rich Ingram. He has set some time aside for us. The guy's got a story. He sure does. I gotta get some. There we go. Rich Ingram coming up today. United States Army Captain, Rich Ingram, keynote speaker, endurance athlete. And despite losing his arm in combat, you heard me correctly, despite losing his arm in combat, Rich continues to embrace life through all challenges and adversity. Imagine being forced to do something. How do you think I manage that? I suspect Rich Ingram didn't feel too good when he was forced to retire by the United States Army. No one... I met Rich for a quick second. He doesn't strike me as a guy who backs down from a fight. He had his arm blown off by an IED. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about his journey now. Successful ultra marathoner. But actually now this second, he's moving. He's in the middle of a move. But he's paused his time for an hour or so. I'm going to hang out with us in the lab and tell the story of Rich Ingram. He's held leadership positions with Fortune 500 companies. Going to welcome here in the lab in a couple seconds. But before we do that, let's pivot the camera over here. Boom, boom. Hey, did you catch the morning show today? Rich Ingram. Oh, I'm talking to you, friend. We got a morning show. We drop live here in the lab, Monday to Friday mornings in the lab at 8 o'clock Eastern time. We sit around for an hour, myself and C. Marty Fit, talking to awesome human beings, but most importantly, with content to help you be accountable and get your day moving. Maybe you're starting the day off on the wrong side of the bed. You're like, I want to go hang out with the guys in the lab. Well, come hang out with us. You'll get some fun conversation. Bring your coffee. Bring your whiskey. Who cares what you bring? Just come hang out with us. First thing in the morning, 8 o'clock Eastern time, live. Mornings in the lab with myself, C. Marty Fit, and friends. And of course, we go live, and then it goes instantly into podcast format so you can take it with you. All right, so I'm teasing this for a quick second before we bring Rich into the room here. And what I'm going to tease you about is Juneuary. Just around the corner. Yes, I said Juneuary. I didn't say June. I didn't say January. I said Juneuary. What is Juneuary, you wonder? Let me tell you. Juneuary is that time of the year that the Business Athlete Performance Lab give you permission, all grace, to have a reset on the year. You're thinking, what? Yeah. Let's face it. Fuck. 5.5 months ago, you gave up on those January resolutions. I remember all you guys. I remember all you guys, all you girls, all you human beings in December going, oh, here's my New Year's resolution for 2024. You're all writing them down and shit. You're all getting your lists made. Yeah. And then February showed up. We know how that works. and then March, and then April, and then May. And guess what? You forgot about your resolutions. You're feeling pretty husky. Or maybe you're feeling pretty slow. Maybe you've been paying for that gym membership you're getting nothing from. You're just wasting money. We all know how much we all love wasting money. It's just fun wasting money. So we invite you, June 1st for the month of June, join Keith and Marty for Juneuary, a 100-day program going to help you get your resolutions back on track. Stay tuned for details. Full permission just to recollect the year. Just imagine going into the latter half of 2024, hitting your 2024 resolutions. Just imagine how spectacular you're going to feel as you're looking towards 2025, going, holy shit, I feel great right now. I just hit my resolutions as we're coming up at the end of summer. I said end of summer. And I'm not saying you can't go. I'm not saying you can't go. I'm not saying you can't go to the patio. I'm not saying you can't have the pop or the steak or the burger. We got a plan for you. Join me and see Marty next week, mornings in the lab, to tell you more about Juneuary. All right, so I think at this point in the show, I am going to welcome, I think he's going to be a new friend. True story. I get a sense he's going to be a new friend of mine. Every single day, I mean, just new friends coming through the lab. Let's just reflect on the week here in the lab. So Monday, we had Mark Boer, a soldier, Army veteran. On Tuesday, we had Anthony Bourke, who flew his F-16 over the burning trade towers in New York City on 9/11. One of the first pilots flying in to fly around downtown New York City, downtown Manhattan. Yesterday, Edward Brower, absolutely blowing up, every pun intended, and changing the podcast industry. All kinds of guests. And then today, we have another Army veteran, but more importantly, I suspect an incredible human being with a story to tell, and that is Rich Ingram. Rich Ingram, what's going on, my friend?
Keith, what's going on? Man, I cannot hear you.
You can't hear me. I can hear you loud and clear. And I'm suspecting that Nation can hear me because nobody's saying they can't not hear me. So I'm checking my audio on my side, and I think I'm recording fine. If anybody listening right now, I know you're all listening. Let me know if you can hear me. You're saying they can hear me. So Rich, I think it might be on your side, my friend. So I'm just going to put you out here for a quick second. Boom. There we go. All right, Rich, we are going to just get you on pause for a second. Just bear with me, Nation. I can hear you. But you can't hear me. All right. Anyway, so Rich Ingram coming up here in the lab in a couple moments. This is why we go live, so we can figure stuff out. And Rich says, I haven't heard anything you've said. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to put the show on a quick pause, and we're going to do this. Let's just do this. Yeah, you exit and come back because it was working earlier. So you just get out of here for a second, my friend. Let's just get you out of here. Kick from the studio. Boom. Let's get him out of here. All right, there goes Rich. He's coming back in a moment. So Rich Ingram, let me tell you a story, Rich Ingram. He is, hold on a second here. I'm getting some action here. Yeah, all right. So Rich, July 20th, 2005, he sustained injuries from an IED, improvised explosive device, attack that resulted in amputation. Rich, can you hear me now? Rich, can you hear me now?
Man, I got you. I don't know what was going on. I thought that was all by design. Like I could not hear anything you've said this entire time. But I was captivated just by your mannerisms and your engagement.
You know what? I just Charlie Chaplin'd on you.
Yeah, you did. It didn't work, man.
I just discovered a brand new fucking skill here in the lab. I can entertain just by doing this.
Yeah, you were pointing at me like I was getting into it. Yeah.
There you go. The Mute Podcast with the Chief Keith Bilous and my new friend, Rich Ingram. What's going on, my friend? So I did a wonderful job introducing you. I said you're the biggest fan of the show. I said that you just accomplished these wonderful things in your entire life, and we talked about all the things that you didn't want to talk about. Such wink, wink.
It looked like an amazing introduction. Yeah, but then I was like, man, is Keith like putting me on the spot here?
Oh,
I don't know
dude.
what he's saying.
Totally funny, totally. So let's just swap cameras here. So Rich, retired United States Army captain, keynote speaker, endurance athlete. But what captivated me was, and I said to Nation when I introduced you, there's a word here in your bio that struck me. You were forced to do something, and you don't strike me as somebody who's like, no, you can't force me to do anything. When the U.S. Army forced you to retire, you don't strike me as somebody that just takes a kicking and doesn't get up standing and throwing punches again. I introduced you as 2005. You had some injuries where this IED affected you. You weren't back. You weren't doing anything about backing down. You've had leadership positions in Fortune 500 companies. And I said you were an all-around pretty nice dude, I think. And I was excited to have you in the lab today. So how did I do in introducing you? You didn't even hear what I had to say, but
it was amazing.
And I said that you gave us some time because you're moving right now. From where to where are you moving from?
So we're moving to Austin, Texas. Yeah, I kicked the movers out. They're packing up everything right now.
Where are you right now, Rich?
I'm in New Orleans.
Oh, okay. And is work for a reason for moving? Or are you moving for life reasons, or what's the reason?
It's just conducive for everything. Life reasons mostly, but work. Being an athlete, we are at negative elevation here, doing a 100-miler in the mountains of Colorado in August. So that can be difficult. But you know what? It's going to be great for the kids, great for my wife, and something she's a new business she's setting up out there.
Oh,
so
cool.
Austin's a great place. This is
You know what strikes me though, Rich, is I've said this to a number of guests through the lab. So I'm here in Canada, and all my American friends.
I can tell by your accent.
Thank you. Yes, all my American friends, y'all just pick up and move. They're like, oh, honey, I think it's time to move to another state. Let's just go move to this state. It's incredible how easily my American friends just pack up and move. Here in Canada, we just set our roots. I'm like, all right, I'm going to be in Saskatchewan forever. Okay, I'm just going to stick around in Manitoba or Ontario forever. Yet, I'll talk to Rich today. He's in New Orleans, Louisiana. He's going to be in Austin, Texas in a couple days or a few weeks. Probably next time he's on the show in a year from now, he's going to be living in Arkansas or living in Alaska, chasing elevation. Like,
dude, I'll be in Alaska way before I'll be in Arkansas, man. I don't know what.
I was saying why I thought of Arkansas. I was saying before I introduced you to the lab. So this last week of guests, man, I got to tell you, I thought you would have heard this, which I thought would spoke your ears. Monday, I had a soldier, Army soldier in the lab. Tuesday, I had an F-16 fighter pilot, flew one of the first jets over the burning Twin Towers on 9/11.
Wow.
Yeah. He wasn't even supposed to be there. He was in Vermont on business. The incident happens. And he's like, oh, I can probably help out. Picks up the phone, calls the squadron across the road there and says, hey, I'm here in town because I'm stuck because obviously what's happened. And they're like, oh, we have 11 pilots. We need a 12th. Can you come join the squadron? He's like, sure. Gets in the cab, goes across the road, gets in a plane, meets a new wingman, gets in a plane he's never flown before. He goes, Keith, 4 hours later, I'm flying over the fucking Twin Towers in New York City burning.
Just talk about seizing the moment, right? That's amazing. That's the story.
But Rich, you can relate to this though, and we'll jump probably 30 minutes into our conversation before we come back. But you know why he was able to do it? You can relate to this because of your Army training, but also your marathon training, your athletic training. He's like, Keith, I just went into training mode. He goes, I've done the same thing over and over. That he goes, sure, it was a different plane. He says, but I was so used to the repetition of doing something that when I had to spring into action, Rich Ingram, he goes, it was just repetition for me. You can probably relate to that, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, staying prepared, right?
Well, in the military, we call them battle drills, right? So, I mean,
yes.
That's how when all of these other things are running through your mind, you just innately move in a certain direction with the guy next to you because you know. But that's how we should be doing in even if you haven't been in the military in our regular lives. I call it resiliently posturing. It's a battle drill to get there, to lift your emotional threshold, to be postured, just like a baseball player always takes 2 steps forward.
Yeah.
At the pitch, I'm ready for this. So
yes,
it's all relative.
It is. So Rich, let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning of Rich Ingram. So born, raised, and bred where?
Again, we move around a lot in the States.
Military family? Mom and dad, military family?
No, their parents were, but my parents met in college in Birmingham, Alabama. Okay. My dad started his practice in a place called LaGrange, Georgia.
Oh, cool. Okay.
which just hit the map. Like it got above 30,000 people. And so I think we got a spot on the map now on the Alabama border. But anyways, we moved there when I was a year old, and that's where I grew up. Was in the state of Georgia.
Okay.
Amazing place, and we
Yeah.
have mountains, lakes, ocean. It's a great place.
That's
Perfect.
spectacular. So young Rich growing up, what drew you to the Army, Rich? Was it lifestyle? Was it intrigue? Was it, I had a fellow in the lab here, again, another incredible story. Gentleman from Chicago, woke up one day on the south side of Chicago after sticking needles in his arms, became a heroin junkie. He's like, I got one of three choices. I'm either going to die, going to be in jail. His buddy enlisted in the military. He's like, I couldn't let him go by himself. He ended up becoming a special ops soldier, was in my lab here. Great stories, great conversations. But I asked him this, and he just ended up down a bad path in life, which is what brought him to the military. What about yourself, Rich? How did you end up in the military?
So mine's a little bit similar. I never did anything with any needles, but I will say this, Keith. One thing that I think you'll find with whether it's addicts, alcoholics, or anything of the like, is that these guys, they're addicts. If they can channel that positively and do something positive,
Mm.
hire them every chance you can get, because they will put everything they have into what you have. And that's what I've found, because they want to maintain that emotional threshold that they have, and by doing something positive, that's how they stay away from going back down into the dark path. So nonetheless, I won't digress down that any longer, but my path was, I was raised in an affluent home, right? Like my parents
Mm.
actually met in medical school, and my mom ended up being a science teacher. I was probably the worst student she ever had. She was my chemistry teacher in the 10th grade.
Jeez.
But look, man, so my dad, an amazing dude, amazing guy. But I didn't see that growing up. He was gone when I woke up in the morning, gone when I went to bed at night. I remember waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we had one of those plaid, like 1980s, 1970s style couches, the brown
Yes.
plaid with the wooden. You remember those things?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I have one upstairs.
yeah, look, they last forever. They're like a forerunner.
I made those fucking things, so I can hear you.
Look, dude. And, but I would sit on the couch and watch TV and wait for him to get out of the shower. And the only thing on at that time was like the evangelical preacher asking
Yeah.
for your money or whatever.
Yes.
And so, anyways, that's one of my memories I had. But as I started to get older, I noticed that my dad wasn't like any of the other fathers. All the other fathers, they had these 9 to 5 jobs. They took their kids to football games on the weekends, hunting, fishing, all this stuff. Like we didn't do that. My dad didn't come to baseball games. And now look, I'm not a woe is me. I still had a great childhood, but what that caused me to do was I loathed him for it, because I saw these other kids, my friends, doing these things that I thought were the popular things. We're supposed to be doing these things. This is what average people do. And I began what I call chasing air. And what that means is you're chasing something that doesn't exist. It's all in your head. You're chasing something you think is going to make you popular, right? And in reality, nobody gives a shit, right? Like, that's why Audi has an A3 and an A5 and an A7. Oh, I'm going to go get the A8i or whatever. Like, nobody gives a fuck what you drive, dude. Like, they really don't at the end of the day. I didn't have access to all this other shit. So I started drinking and fighting. I was a party animal, and I thought that would put me on this pedestal. Now I love sports, I love science, and I loved all these things, but I didn't see those as things that it was a lot of work, basically,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get to the top at that. So I
Yes.
was chasing air, chasing average, right? Like I saw what average people were doing, and so I started getting in a lot of trouble, dude. And my parents orchestrated this, but I got arrested multiple times for, look, I wasn't morally a bad kid, and I would tell you if I was, but I was underage drinking,
Yeah.
disorderly conduct, that kind of shit. And
Yeah.
I ended up in a youth detention center.
Yeah.
Cops came and got me my 12th grade year and pulled me out of the hallway and handcuffed me. And I went to fucking prison for 3 months. And that was one of the defining moments. Somehow, look, in the state of Georgia is really easy. They have the Hope scholarships, really easy to get an academic scholarship. And so I got into a school, and dude, I didn't even apply for it. Okay. My mom submitted the paperwork. Fortunately, I had the SATs to get there, I had the GPA to get in. And somehow it was the one school my parents would let me go to. It was one of 6 senior military colleges in the country. And it's the largest Army ROTC college. So it's like Texas A&M, where we have civilians and cadets.
Yes.
And that's where I fell in love with the military there. However, old habits die hard, right? And so after a 1.7 GPA my first semester. I had gotten in trouble for drinking again, which wouldn't have mattered. I would have been put on, because you can't drink at a military college. Like they put you on room arrest, which no big deal, right? Like you get off of it and you keep fucking going. But I didn't think like that. So here I am, this 8-year-old kid, and I've been a supernova my entire life. Like all of this energy, just no fucking direction. I'm looking for some kind of path.
Yeah.
But I quit after that 1.7 GPA, and I called my folks. I was like, "Hey, I'm coming home." My dad was like, "Dude, you're not coming home." I found myself in a tent, living in a tent by a place called Dick's Creek in the North Georgia mountains in December and January. It was so cold. Like I was homeless. I was fucking homeless. It was so cold that my heater froze, a little propane heater that I had froze at night. And after a couple of days, I ended up getting this job. I don't even remember what I was doing, something with vinyl siding, working 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 days a week, making $22,000. Now, look, this was 2000, what was it, 2001, 2002? This point, $22,000 was still nothing back then.
Yeah. Yes.
And so after a couple weeks, I was like, man, fuck this. I'm like washing my hair in bathroom sinks and gas stations, brushing my teeth in a creek. I had zero fucking money. And so I ended up going to a recruiter, and I was like, look, I was in ROTC. I wanted to be an officer then. I still want to do that. And I want to join up. And fortunately, all the trouble that I got into, it was on a juvenile record. Like it was good. I called my dad. I was like, Dad, I'm going to basic training. Can I come home? And he's like, yes, under these conditions. No drinking. You can't go out past 7. You have to work out and run every single day. You have to read a book a week and write a book report on it. And so my dad literally had this calendar. It was like a weekly calendar with all the days. And I would have to write out what my plan was. And then at the end of every day, I would have to write what I did. And he would sign off on it, and he would grade my book reports. This, for the first few weeks, like this is difficult, right? Like I'm back home where I was back to my roots, where I was drinking and partying. And so it was difficult at first, but after about 3-4 weeks of this, I was just enamored by the growth that I saw in myself. And just, I wasn't reading a book a week. I was consuming knowledge. And when I got to basic training, there was no way that I could have been more prepared. I flourished. And that's where I fell in love with the military. I found what I thought at the time, which we'll get into in a little bit. I thought that was my purpose. That was the only thing. I had taken all of this just unguided energy and channeled it into that, because my dad and I were a lot alike, right? He was using almost like for good, and I was using mine for my energy that I had for evil. And now today, he's one of my heroes. What he taught me is that to be successful, you have to be an outlier. If you think that you're going to reach it to the top by getting fucking lucky, yeah, okay, go for it, guy. Keep playing the lottery and wasting your fucking money. But what it all comes down to is hard fucking work and doing the things that other people don't want to do. Yeah, give up that beach trip. If something comes up, you might not be able to take your family on. Give up going to that fucking concert. It may not be the best thing for you. You might have to double down on some things to get where you want to be, but you have to become an outlier. And that's what he taught me. And I can never repay him.
I got to tell you, you might see me having a little bit of emotion here, because I'm struck by the love that your father gave you.
It was tough love.
Dude,
tough
there's
love,
people listening right now that can relate to you. I know I've shared some of my stories growing up, and I love my dad to pieces, but listen, there's generations exist for a reason, Rich. And I've learned in this lab to show my emotion on my sleeve and just let it roll. But when you said something, and I wanted just to let you go with it, you said moments ago, I called Dad, and Dad said, you can't come home. Rich, you can't come home, man. Like, what? That's my home. That's my parents. And your parents were set up. You clearly probably had a life that was probably quite good. And they're like, no, you can't come home. You had to figure it out yourself. You fucking were homeless. And then when you came home, he set what I love, and I'm going to call him, he set boundaries for you. He created boundaries for you. He taught you those boundaries. That to me that's the ultimate in love, isn't it, Rich? Is teaching our kids boundaries, empowering them within those boundaries. Because then you say to me moments later that my dad's my fucking hero now. He's my superhero. If he doesn't give you those boundaries, which initially then gives you those wings to fly, empowering you to fly. Dude, we're not having this conversation today.
Oh, no way. And what's crazy about it is I'm sure that when he said you can't come home, that was that. What father wants to say that to a child?
How does you get off the phone with your mom and say, I just told Rich? Do you have siblings, Rich?
Oh, she was on board. I have an older sister. My older sister's been amazing, dude. All the trouble I got into.
I know mom would have been on board, but my point is they hang up the phone and you can't tell me. I guarantee you, if there wasn't tears, I'm not sure how your family emotes, but there was emotion there, knowing that they were doing the right thing, as tough as it was. Yeah. Because here's why I'm also suspecting they knew they knew that they did the right thing with you. And here's what I've heard. And I believe that I can say this because I've met so many incredible humans every single day for the last year through the lab here. The foundation of Rich Nixon was largely set, wasn't it? I'm sorry, Rich Ingram was largely set, right? Your mom and dad had instilled values in you. You had the foundation was set, which is somewhere in your own mind you got off that, but the foundation was good. Right. Mom and dad's examples were great. You just had to find a way yourself back to those foundation that they had set for you.
Coincidentally, you say that. So this guy my dad was, instead for a baseball bat when I was 7 years old, for my birthday, he got me the Book of Virtues by William J. Bennett. But I mean, that's how my parents were. And you're exactly right. And now look, again, I had been doing these things for years. We're never out of the woods. It is a work in progress. That old adage, we have never arrived. You have never arrived. So if you can't get used to the work in progress in the process, you're set out for a lot of fucking letdown. But yeah, it was.
So let's continue. Let's continue, Rich. So you end up enlisting for basic training. You are how old at that time?
So I must have been 20, 21.
Yeah.
20.
So you enlist, and then let's maybe speed up the train a little bit. You enlist, you go through training, you get your first call to go on your first tour of duty. But before we get onto the plane, before we make our way there, tell me, I got this. This always makes me curious, frankly. I ask this question of every soldier I speak to. What's it like getting that call? Okay, it's time to go, Rich. I know you've been training, but now it's okay. Now we're going to real theater. What's it like getting that call? What's it like getting on the plane, flying across? What's it like getting off the plane, stepping into theater? What are those emotions? Are you afraid of dying? Are you scared? You're a smart guy. Your mom and dad, you've just taken the last part of your life to get your shit together. Take me through that, Rich. Can you?
Yeah, so I cannot speak for anyone else except for myself. I was ecstatic. I could not fucking wait. And the reason is because during the time, I remember reading when I was at home, Rangers in Korea, Rangers in Vietnam, and reading about soldiers climbing Point du Hoc and all of these different things. One of my mentors, his buddies was a Marine, and in Vietnam had both of his arms, while the North Vietnamese, both of his arms amputated. He's the only one left in his company alive. He has a gun, but what is he going to do with it with no hands? And the North Vietnamese are coming at him. And so in my mind, I think part of it was a test of myself. I felt like I couldn't let those guys down. Like those guys, like they were the true fucking heroes. And I want to be like them. And so I think maybe part of it was proving myself, but at the same time,
it's this desire to go, isn't it?
100%. And so for me,
I told you about Mark. Mark, if you're watching what's shaking, Mark joined me in the lab on Monday, a soldier, got injured, had to leave duty. He's enlisted right on the National Guard. I can't fucking wait to go again. Like yourself, he was so jacked to go the first time. He's like, Keith, I was ready to go. And then I got injured. Yeah. And he goes, then I was taken out of it. So in many ways, he was forced out, not by his own choosing. And now he sits here just itching when the National Guard calls to say, all right, we got to go here. He's like, yeah, all right, let's go. There's a mentality, isn't there? When you enlist and you commit to something, is it patriotic? What is it, Rich?
I think, I don't know if it's necessarily patriotic, but I think for me, part of it was, in my mind, still to this day, there is no more honorable profession than going to fight for your country. Yeah. And look, you get to go fight. You get to literally, you're being paid to blow shit up, shoot guns, and work out for a living. Like where else are you going to do that? And a little bit selfish, but at the same time, like I knew that this was good. And look, any soldier that gives you that answer, like that guy, hire that fucking guy. because there's a lot of soldiers out there, and I'm not taking anything away from them that they sign up because they want the college or whatever, and then like their heart's not in it. I don't know. That to me is whatever. But if I was given a couple guys that I'm supposed to hire, I'm gonna pick that dude that wanted to go every fucking day of the week. So,
So
anyways, I'll get off that tangent.
no, we'll come back to it because I agree with much of what you're saying, frankly. So, Rich, you're excited. You land. Where was your first tour of duty?
So we were in a place called the Triangle of Death, right? So, yeah.
How excited were you for that?
Yeah. Oh, it was amazing. And I don't even know if I knew that's what it was called at the time, but
Yeah.
we were in Mammadia. And so the triangle is Mammadia, Yusufia, and Ludafia. And it was just known for intense violence during that time, right?
In the
I think it
Middle
was
East?
like, yeah, in Iraq.
Okay, in
Sorry.
Iraq. Yeah, okay, yeah.
And so, yeah, that's where it was. I arrived, I think it was maybe April 2005
Okay,
when we got there.
okay.
And just to paint a picture for you what it was like, and it was a lot different than the guys who came through Fallujah in 2003 and house to house fighting. And I didn't see stuff like that. What we saw a lot of was a lot of indirect fire, a lot of roadside bombs, and then it just getting shot at and not knowing where anybody was, right? It was just cowardice, really. But whatever. It was a war they were fighting, and it is what it is.
Mhm.
So our second day in country, we got shelled by mortars, our operating base. And when this happens, you're taught to go in the bunker until the all clear is given. All clear meaning because we had technology that can pinpoint reverse where they're coming from, these rounds, and so you can see what's in the sky. So, anyways, they give an all clear, and that means you can come out. Like one of the rounds that had hit a tent, it was like 2 tents away from mine, and our platoon. So we're in this bunker just listening to the screams, and you can't get out and do anything because you could just be another casualty. And so they gave the all clear, and we knew it was our platoon's job. We were we're a quick reaction force. So we were supposed to go get these guys with the coordinates they gave us from where they launched these mortars from or whatever they had shot us. And as a 21-year-old kid, I had never seen carnage and blood like that, right? On the ground, on the tent was mangled. And I know at least one of the soldiers, I believe it was an airman, was killed. And another guy that was injured, I ended up seeing at Walter Reed after I lost my arm. Going back to the battle drill thing is so important because when we were given the all clear, after everything that we just saw running past that tent to get to our Humvees, it was insane. When we got into our vehicles, we got to the objective, and I heard Ingram take point. Now I'm in a completely different hostile environment. Okay, we're walking in an open field. Am I going to step on a mine? Are we going to get more indirect fire? Are we going to get direct fire engagement? You have no idea what's about to happen. But everybody, through everything that's going through minds, everything that they just saw fell into place beautifully. It was like an orchestra and like a symphony. And we ended up capturing these guys. We spotted these guys and our front guys, because you're in this battle drill called react to contact, right? Where you're just walking until something pops up. But then it turns into, okay, we call it battle drill 1 alpha. It turns into an attack. And so my platoon or my squad laid down a support position, and then the guys behind us came across and we enveloped these dudes. Everything 18, 19, 20-year-old kids that were going through their mind, that was executed flawlessly because we had trained flawlessly. We had trained not until we got it right, but until we couldn't get it wrong. So it didn't matter what was going on in our heads at the time. It was just innate. We knew how to move. And that was like, hi, welcome to Iraq. But it really set the stage. I don't think there's any other way that I would want to have been welcomed, because it gave us the confidence that we needed to really do what we had to do for the future of that deployment.
So, Rich, when you get there, you just get down to work. You're not checking. I'm gonna jest for a little bit second here, but we're not going to a hotel, putting our luggage away, hanging out, and okay, we'll meet you all in the lobby at 6:00.
Yeah.
No, we're get in the Humvee. We're going to work. Really?
Yeah, that was it. That was it. It was. Yeah, I know, as crazy as it sounds, it was fun.
I believe you. No, it doesn't sound
Yeah.
crazy to me, actually, because I've talked to enough fellows like yourself here in the lab that I've learned now the respect and admiration I have for you guys. And I get why it's fun. I get why you signed up. I understand why. And now I've always wondered why there isn't fear. I've spoken to 6 guys now that come to the lab. Now, one guy said he was scared. Every single guy was like, I was excited and ready to go.
I don't
And
know. I was scared, Keith. I can't say I wasn't scared, but I think I had a phenomenal squad leader,
I wonder,
Joe.
sorry to interrupt you, Rich, but
Yeah, go ahead.
I wonder if you're scared. I wonder if you weren't scared then, but when you reflect upon it now, as a more mature human who has had time to reflect upon your experiences, you have children. I wonder if it's almost like phantom fear, where you're projecting on how you think you were feeling. I sincerely believe you weren't scared, and I'm not trying to disagree with you, but I sincerely believe you were ready to rock and roll and you were rolling. You didn't have time to be scared because you were so well trained. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. Not at all. I think before I would go out on every mission, I always had an mentality, fuck it. You have to do this. What are you gonna say? You can't give up whatever you're doing. Like everybody's counting on you. So to
Yes.
me, it doesn't mean that you're not scared, but to me, fear is an emotion,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
that's natural.
Yes.
But I guess more so, I didn't let it control. And look, I am not great at so anger is an emotion that I have to work on more than anything. But I
Okay.
think I have gotten pretty good at working on anxiety and fear and not letting that control me. So that's what, I think the difference is what are you going to let, because it's a good thing, right? Fear is a good thing.
Yes.
That's why I didn't just start skipping through a field without a weapon. But anyways, I think that's more along the lines of what it is that okay, this is how I'm feeling. I got that in check.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
One, two,
Yeah.
three. All right, now let's fucking do this.
So let's continue the journey. You're there day one. Day one is over with. I'm suspecting it's this first tour though is when the accident happens. Am I correct?
That's right. Yeah, it happened about 3 months, 2.5 months after we got there.
So you're 2.5 months in, confidence galore because
Oh
you've been
yeah,
doing things over and over. The shoulders are out, chest is out. You're thinking, man, this is actually pretty good. Having some fun, hanging out with my buddies, shooting shit, blowing shit up. Things are
yeah.
great. Am I right?
Oh, you're exactly right. Exactly right.
And then there's this egotism, like there's all these wonderful emotions, right? The anger challenges you're having with you can exploit them and have fun with them. Then, whether it's the morning or night, I'm not sure what time it was, you get onto the Humvee, I'm suspecting, and
Humbly, yeah.
you're going for a ride. Take me on that ride.
So yeah, so we were going somewhere in the triangle. I think it was between Yusufia and Ludafia. I don't really recall, but it was a four vehicle patrol. I was the rear gunner. So this was before we didn't have the up armored, mine resistant, ambush protected vehicle. So half my body is exposed, minus a turret that goes probably about 250, 270 degrees around you, maybe. And so half your body's exposed. But look, man, I'm telling you, every time I was on that gun, like I was ready for a fight. I think that I did a really good job of focusing on what I had to do. And again, because it goes back to I can't let my team down. Like
Of
they're,
course.
they're
Yes.
counting on me. So I was the rear gunner. So that meant I had the six. I have my left and right limits. Like I'm not letting any motherfucker come in here. Like I own this. And I was just a spec for it. But I had that little piece of the pie and I owned it. And you just feeling the power of the butterfly trigger on your thumbs of a 50 caliber machine gun. It's just exhilarating. And shortly into that reconnaissance patrol, the fight never happened as I envisioned it. My vehicle struck a roadside bomb called IED, improvised explosive device, and subsequently catapulted the vehicle in the air and threw us into a roll. And I remember thinking when we got hit, lights out, say a prayer, lights out, say a prayer. And I can't explain what it's like to be that. I just knew I knew I was going to die. There wasn't a doubt in my mind. And that's what those are the things that I was saying to myself. But all of a sudden, I hit the ground and I'm like, what the? It was like a dream because nobody survives that. And a gunner, right? So many gunners, you normally die either in the rollover or through the blast. But when I look up, I saw my driver unconscious in the front passenger seat, and we call it the TC seat, the truck commander seat. I'm like, oh, fuck. So when I went to move towards him, that's when I felt the pain in my arm because up to that point I didn't feel anything. And so I went to just cradle my arm because I just figured it was broken, and my hand just completely missed my arm, and my heart almost stopped. I looked down on the ground, and my forearm is just laying on the ground,
Oh my
connected
God.
by a piece of tissue no bigger than your pinky finger. So now I'm back into this I'm about to fucking die mode again. And I remember was just showing myself like, I'm not fucking dying here. And so I picked my arm up and I ran with it. And I went over and I just started kicking the Humvee door. And Spottis would, again, this was a flawless action. They've been trained. He came to, he gets out, takes the tourniquet out of my pocket as we're trained, and he puts it on. It saved my life. And 19-year-old kid, I maybe even been 18. And I just sat there and waited on the chopper to come. And one of my buddies, one of my best friends, Paul Saylor, came over and held my hand. And he held my hand until I was put on the chopper, and he let go of my hand when I was put on the Black Hawk. And he was like, all right, you can be okay, man. I'll see you soon. And while I was at the hospital, I got a phone call about a month later, and he was killed.
Oh.
And that hit me hard. I'd never really known, are you sitting down? what that meant. I mean, I about fell out because he was such a good dude. But that was the nature of war. But yeah, that's how it went down. Defining moment, right?
Rich, talk to me about emotion. You talk about anger. You talk about anxiety. You talk about fear. You talk about losing best friends. How do you manage emotion in those moments? How do you manage that emotion of not just breaking down when there's somebody who, because man, how can there not be love when you're going to war with men who you're fighting for, who are fighting for you, who are putting their life on the line for you? I know we're not taught to cry and you can't go to the military and cry. And I'm not suggesting we're here to cry together, Rich Ingram. But let's talk about emotion in that moment. And how are you feeling when your best friend is holding your hand?
I remember the reason why I was holding my hand to begin with was because I told him I was going to lay down and close my eyes because I was staring at the sun. This is July in Iraq. It's 120 something degrees. And he was like, don't close your eyes. Don't close your eyes. And I was like, dude, there's fucking sweat running in my eyes right now. I'm not going to keep staring at the fucking sun. And he was like, "Well, hold my hand." And then I just remember that's when because the medevac chopper actually went somewhere else first because they were called first, and then they came to us. So it took a while. And but I remember the pain started coming on like hard while I was waiting for that, and because the amount of morphine the doc has is only going to go so far, but. I was squeezing the fuck out of that. That goddamn ball was, but yeah, man. Looking back on that, to have somebody that close a lot. I'm not much of an emotional person like that, but when I found out about what happened to him, I cried. I couldn't. I,
I can tell just by your demeanor right now in our exchange here in this moment that it's a defining moment for you and it's a human moment for you. And in the last 3 minutes, like just my holy smoke, man, are we actually already 47 minutes into our conversation? Geez, I thought we just started.
Sorry, dude. I can get to talking, right?
No, just hold on, rewind, stop the apologies. No, I'm glad you booked 2 hours. Nation, we're going into overtime. So I can tell you right now that we're not going to be done in 50 moments. We're just getting started. Or we're having Rich Ingram when he's back in Austin. I can see that happening, frankly. Me and soldiers, we just get into it and we just never stop. I hope you're enjoying this conversation as much.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I love how you're digging into it. I love it.
So what happens then? Let's get tactical. So you are you immediately pulled out of duty? When do you end up at Walter Reed? What happens in Iraq? Take me through that process. Take me through the ride home, back home to America, all of that. I want to get into that with you, Rich.
Oh man, I remember I had the hottest nurse on the Air Force plane.
I love it. And, you've lost your arm. Life has gone sideways and you're still thinking with a different head.
I'll never forget that. Oh my gosh. I hope that one of these days she's like, I remember that guy. She probably had so many amputees, but anyways. So I arrived, I was flown to Baghdad. That's where they amputated the rest of my arm. And I maybe because it happened on July 20th around 10 a.m. And so I would have probably been flown that night to Germany, which I think is maybe a five-hour flight.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I remember I spent one night in Germany and then I was flown to Walter Reed. I was at Walter Reed on July 22nd. And so for anybody that's out there wondering about what the positive effects are of physical fitness, I can tell you if you ever lose your arm, you will stabilize much more quickly if you're physically fit. So there you go. But that's how I arrived at Walter Reed through by way of Lunchstool, just stabilized quickly. And when I got there, I was, and I'll back up. I'll tell you what was going through my head, I guess, when I woke up in Baghdad.
Because at this point, when you wake up, you're amputated now.
Yeah, amputated. I remember the helicopter getting to Baghdad and then cutting everything off of me, just soaked in blood. And the next thing you know, like I'm out. They anesthetized. And when I wake up on a gurney, being wheeled into my hospital room, and I just remember rolling over and looking at my limb, and it's wrapped in bandages. And I tried not to cry. I can't explain. I saw everything crashing down at once. I counted on my physical prowess to spend my life in a combat arms career. My entire life of figuring out what I was going to do, chasing air, being that supernova with no guide, with no direction. And I finally found it. And all this deployment had done for me was just embolden everything that I had confirmed about what was my purpose in life. It was to be a soldier. I found that I was good at it, and that's all I knew. I had no attachments. I didn't have a girlfriend, a dog. I didn't even have a place to live, right? Like, that was me. The army was me. So when I see my arm, it's just like another homeless veteran on the street corner asking for your money. Everything that I worked my life from, all that I came from being homeless, from being in a youth detention center, all this shit. I finally got some kind of direction, and now I'm back at square one. What the fuck am I gonna do now? And I will tell you that for me, I had a great support network. When I was taken to Walter Reed, when I arrived at my hospital room, my mom was there and she had my fly fishing rod with me, of all things, to bring a one arm person. But it was her way of saying life doesn't have to change for you.
No, so I didn't, I was just going to say to you, that was your mom's way of saying that, come on, Rich, life's not over, man. We're going fishing. It's
100%.
somewhat crude, right? It's like, what are you teasing, the one-armed guy with the fishing rod or the baseball bat or the hockey stick? No, it's actually the opposite. It's saying, son, you can still do this. Don't give up. That's what she's saying to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, like my dad hitting the grand slam with
Yeah.
the direction he provided, my mom having this little thing. And so initially, I didn't know what I was going to do with this thing. But a couple days later, my cousin shows up and he was like, "Hey, man, let's take this thing out to the front lawn of the hospital and let's just see what we can do." And
I
so I
love it.
said, "Yeah." And it wasn't long before I broke down in tears, because another thing that I had identified with had been taken away.
Yeah.
To
I'm gonna be, I'm holding back the tears listening to you talk. I'm not gonna lie to you. I am, because you're touching me, man. Keep going.
For me, being on a mountain trout stream is for most people like being in a sanctuary or
Yeah.
synagogue or whatever. That's my jam. And it was a lot of who I was. And again, to even today. But nonetheless, Lawrence came over to me, my cousin, and he's like, "We're gonna keep at this." And so I just channeled all the anger, all the frustration that I was feeling. And I kept at it. I kept going. I kept trying to figure it out. And I learned that I could strip the line with my teeth. Because those that don't know about fly fishing isn't just like a Zebco.
Yes,
And,
yes. Yeah.
so I could strip line with my teeth. And then I could use my two fingers, my index finger, my middle finger, to manipulate the line and release and pull back to cast. And I almost started crying again, right? But my
Yes.
view on everything changed during that experience, from what am I going to do now to whatever it takes, I will keep moving forward. And my trajectory, my rehabilitative trajectory, and my journey from that point forward was catapulted into a completely different direction. And it was because my mom brought that fly rod, and I had my cousin there supporting me to just show me the way. Like, hey, you have this in you. You gotta pull it out.
That's
So,
exceptional. And I can see how that ignites, because once you master what you love and you're like, okay, I get the call. Hey, if I can do this, which what I love, fly fishing, I can do anything now.
yeah, 100%. But it opens you up to, okay, it's not over, man. Fuck this.
Yeah.
Let's go. Mount up. And for me, shortly thereafter, because at that time, I was
Mhm.
still connected to a wound vac, an IV tree. I had,
Oh, yes, of course. Yes.
yeah, I had
Yeah.
a nerve block and all this stuff. This was like within a week
Right.
of losing my arm. And I think I don't remember when I got out of because when you get out of the hospital, you're still on Walter Reed campus. You just go to an outpatient. It's like a
Okay.
hotel.
Okay.
But I think I was still in the hospital. I was still in the hospital. I think when I signed up for the Army 10 miler, maybe it wasn't. Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. But I signed up for the Army 10 miler, and because I'd always been a runner, and I didn't do poorly. I don't remember what my time was, and that's irrelevant as well. But a guy comes into the prosthetics lab a couple days after that race and stuff. Rich, you didn't do too bad on that Army 10 miler. Do you want to be on my triathlon team? And had he asked me that when I had two arms, I would have said no. And I
Yeah.
would have said no because I was stuck in a fixed mindset prior to losing my arm. But now I was recreating myself, recreating who I was, my identity, figuring things out. And I was like, yeah, man, fuck it. What do I got to lose? And so that decision right there was a defining moment that really continued that trajectory for me. And physical fitness, and that's why I'm an endurance athlete to this day. Physical fitness, not just, oh, I wake up and I run 5 miles every morning or when I get home every day, but having an ambitious target and immersing yourself in that challenge and that discomfort towards a goal. That is what will make your life completely separate and above anyone else. I promise that. And I think for me, that's what triathlon did. We had all these triathlons scheduled. And dude, I hadn't been in a swimming pool since I was in middle school. And I quit when I was in middle school because I was so horrible. Everybody'd be at the end of the pool and I'd look up and I'd see the flags. I'm like, oh, I'm fucking finally there. And I tell this story. The first time I got in the pool with one arm, I had the only open lane was the one with all the 110-year-olds that are doing pool noodle exercises. They take out a rope. So I'm like dodging buoys as I'm going through, but it wouldn't matter anyways. Like I was horrible. I couldn't even get to the end of the lane the first time I got in the pool without busting into a doggy paddle breaststroke. The difference was this time I never fucking quit. I had told Dave that I would be on his triathlon team. Challenge Athletes Foundation was sponsoring me to go to these races and to be a part of their team. And they were setting up this, it's called an Operation Rebound. They're setting this up for wounded warriors to get back into living an active lifestyle. I couldn't let them down, and I couldn't let at this point, it was about me. Like I couldn't let myself down because what else did I fucking have?
I was just gonna say, you at this point in your life, you could not look in your own mirror and let yourself down.
100%. And I kept showing up. And for cycling, it was the same thing. The last time I had cycled was like to my buddy's house when I was 12 years old, right? And everybody had to wait on me at the stop sign. And it was embarrassing because I was used to being on the big bench, right? I'll show you a picture of what I used to look like, but I was like 200 something pounds, benching well over 300. I mean, I was a big guy. And to be at this level now at the back of the pack, it was embarrassing and it was uncomfortable. But that is where transformation happens. And
Mhm.
before I knew it, dude, I was waiting on people at the stop sign and I was happy to do it. I was happy to do it
Yeah.
because people did it for me. And that meant that I was pulling other people, right? I was making someone else get better because they didn't want to be waited on either. But that growth mindset to truly have transformation, you have to do the things that are uncomfortable. For me, yeah, I'm not gonna say it was easy because I have one fucking arm, but I was backed in a corner and didn't have any other option. In my mind, I didn't have any other option. And so I think that it's all relative. It's relative to everyone. If you want to change, you got to get uncomfortable.
Rich, you don't strike me as somebody who identifies with just having one arm.
No, I don't. No, I don't know. I'm confused at that, anyways. So
No, and
maybe.
what I don't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. What you strike me as, it's who Rich Ingram is, and it's just part of your journey and your story. Where some might look at it as an excuse or as a reason or help defining them, I don't suspect. Yes, there was a moment you reflect upon it, you're aware of it when the IED changed your life.
Yeah.
There was a moment when mom brought the fishing rod, but you're a much more rounded human being than the guy with only one arm.
Yeah, I don't even really think about it anymore. Now, I will say sometimes when the kids are like, they're all screaming. Like last night, somebody threw a bag of goldfish all over the playroom, and then the other one's throwing milk on the wall. And then I spilled some water because of something, and I was just like, "God, goddamn one arm." And every now and then that'll pop out. But at the end of the
With
day,
your own humor, then you call yourself.
yeah, you're like, "Fuck." But at the end of the day, man, whether you're spiritual or stars aligned, energy, I do believe to some extent, like, I was kept alive for a reason. And I think that I'm fulfilling that now.
Mhm.
It took a while to figure out what was going on, but I truly believe that my purpose in life is to be a leader and a motivator.
It's
And
clear. It's absolutely clear that that is your purpose and your mission in life. You have children, don't you?
I have three.
You, what do you have?
A 5-year-old daughter, a 3-year-old son, and a 2-year-old daughter.
When they look at dad, who do they see? Dad jokes
Um,
and just a dad. Just I'm a dad too. My kids are older, so yeah. Dad's a creator. Oh my God, dad's a YouTuber. Oh yeah, dad's a YouTuber. So
yeah, my
what?
kids aren't there yet.
You know, so when kids see dad has one arm, dad's a little different than other dads. How do kids see dad, and how do it's because that's just normal for them. So it's not normal. You know what I'm trying to say?
Oh yeah, yeah. They don't think anything about it. And like I have one arm and picked them up and tossed them like just
Yes.
like any other dad would. And what's really interesting about that question though is that all three of my kids are in school. And at first, all the friends are like, oh, I'm completely honest. Like, I'll go up to a kid if he's looking at me. I'm like, hey, you want to know what happened to my arm? He's like, yeah. I'm like, hey, I was a soldier fighting for your freedom, and the bad guys took it. I was in a fight, and a bomb made big explosion, and I lost my arm. And they're like, one kid, I told this kid in this, he was like, okay. And he ran off and started playing soccer again.
Yeah.
But it's so cool because now, like, none of those kids even think about it.
That's right.
And so many people are always like trying to
Normalize the fear of it. You've normalized I'm going to use the word the weirdness of it because you're like, no, you're not afraid to share that and be vulnerable about it. But let's continue. Let's put the arm aside. Let's talk about the ultra marathon athletes. So you wake up now, military career is behind you. You have this burgeoning athletic career. You're like, yeah, I'm fully going to embrace this idea of being an athlete now. I was a soldier. I'm a soldier. I'm now channeling my energy to being a dad, being a business guy, and being an athlete. So you wake up
Right.
today, Rich, a whole new identity. You're a dad. You got 3 kids who I'm sure that you now consider boundaries for your kids, like your dad did with you later on in life. Talk about Rich Ingram's life today and the life of being an athlete, the life of business, and so forth.
For me, the reason why I like to run as much as I do is, or anything for that matter. I don't care if I'm jumping on a bike or I'll run it into the fucking ground, is because I have to maintain my emotional stability and my emotional threshold because that's how I show up positively for my family and the people that I care about in my life. I know that if I am not chasing that ambitious target and enjoying the journey on that process to getting to that product, I could falter, right? I could end up on the couch in the fetal position, letting PTSD or anxiety or whatever it is take me. I don't have time for that shit. I have to be intentional with every part of my day, with everything that I do, because I have too much going on otherwise. And when several years ago, I guess it was maybe 4 years ago now, my daughter, she looked at the couch and she's like, Daddy, because I was back into kind of, look, I've always had some level of fitness, but I was getting back into just, I wasn't where I needed to be. And she let me know that indirectly. And I was like, you know what? Fuck. I sort of, because I got injured again after I came back into the military. I tore my hamstring and I had something else happen. And so I hadn't ran in a couple of years. And I just said, you know what? Fuck it, man. And I was hopping whatever I had to do. And then I finally started getting into it. And I was like, why don't I sign up for a race? So I signed up for a 50K. And so went couch from 50K. But I'll tell you again, that is what it's about, is getting uncomfortable, chasing that ambitious target. But again, it's all about the process. The product is just the cherry on top. And as soon as that one, because I call it challenge immersion, and that's how we stay within that emotional threshold to resiliently posture, is we stay immersed in something. So we don't have time to let these other things bother us or whatever. We got to get on to the next task. We have to focus on what we have right now. And so that's why I am just so enamored with the endurance sports. And
It's I got to tell you, you may think I asked you to be on the show because you're being a veteran, because of the injury, because of your life, but it was actually the one word that you've used a few times in the last few minutes. It's endurance, because that's what I believe is what a business athlete is. And that's when I created the Business Athlete Performance Lab. Because being an entrepreneur or be a business person, you got to have endurance. And I'll give you a tip. If you're a business guy, go run a marathon, go climb a mountain, go and run a 50K, go and get on a bike and go do 50 kilometers or 50 miles. But business is actually endurance. And so when I saw you and you're like, hey, Keith, I'm this, but I'm all about endurance. I'm like, yep, I got to talk to Rich because Rich gets endurance. You know, it's because it's all here, man. The body will do it. The body will fucking do it. You got to decide here that you're going to do it.
And you know where that starts is with your purpose.
Yes.
You know, I said that earlier. I thought soldiering was my purpose, and so to me, willpower is bullshit. Okay,
I absolutely agree. There's no such thing as willpower.
Yeah, if you want to call it willpower, it can be part of an executive function in the prefrontal cortex. Right?
Sure.
And every time that you're charging it, you're hitting that gas pedal. That
Yes.
gas tank's just getting depleted. What happens at the end of the day? You can either eat the avocado salad or go for the Lay's bag of potato chips after you've just been getting rejected all day on your sales calls. You're looking at your fucking pro forma and just found, yeah, there you go.
I taped up peanut butter jar because I have problems with peanut butter. So it wasn't willpower. I was like, fuck it, I'm taping it shut.
Yeah, you're gonna change your environment, but
change your environment and change your habit. It's exactly what I did.
And the true motivator to anything is your purpose, not a surface purpose. And I've said this a million times. I'm not a runner. Running is not my purpose because I'm one jacked up knee away from not being a runner. And so that's how I derived at I am a leader and I am a motivator, because regardless of whether I go out and get hit by an 18-wheeler in an hour and I can no longer run or I can no longer use my legs, I'm going to fucking figure something out to continue to lead, continue to motivate people so I can show up positively for the people in my life. And so that's what I mean by purpose. You got to peel back that onion, find something in the core that is never going to change, regardless of what is going on. Because at the end of the day, when you start going through, oh, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I've bitten off more than I can chew. Oh, I owe the bank this much money. The SBA loan is only good for this amount and I'm not getting any fucking customers. Look, man, you pull your shit together. You made a plan when you were not going through these negative emotions, right? Stick to it. Stick to it. And I'll tell you one other thing that I love as an example. When you start to feel stuff like that, first thing you do is you pull out I have a composition notebook. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? What am I doing about it? This was my plan. I'm actually executing to the plan. Okay, so one, you either are on track, you're just going through an undulating period, or three, maybe I could add these things, but don't change your plan. Don't stop what you're doing until you're out of that so-called funk. Don't let your emotions drive your plan. Get back to another planning period. And then what works 100% of the time, but it has to start with purpose, because without the purpose, whatever journey you're on, dude, maybe you should be going north and you're fucking going south. You're never going to find success if you're not on the right journey. Right. And it has to start with your purpose. And I have a little story on my website that kind of goes through that, where my knee blew up at mile 8 of a 50-mile race in the mountains of Colorado. And purpose, that's how you finish. When things hit the fan, that's the true motivator.
Yeah, so true, man. Purpose. I know I have a good friend, Ray White, who talks often about purpose. And it is the great, when you have a purpose, life just seems so much easier, doesn't it? When there's a purpose and a reason to get going every single day. And man, Rich Ingram, I know we've been at this for over an hour now, and I'm gonna work towards wrapping it up. Are there any questions that I haven't asked you want to make sure Nation knows about on the business side of things? Where can people find you? Is there anything you want to plug or promote at this part of the show?
Yeah, absolutely. So richingram.com is my website. I am a speaker. I'm always looking for gigs with that. But what I would really like to promote is I am running the Leadville 100 in August in Colorado, and I am raising funds for an organization called Warriors and Quiet Waters. So if you go to my website, on each of the pages, you'll see a banner at the top, support me, and you click there and it'll take you to my fundraising page. This organization, just click on that and you'll see why you should donate. But this organization, bar none, is just one of the best veteran nonprofits that there is out there. So help me in supporting them to help our veterans.
Excellent. I did the best I could at my quick little typing. So it's funny.
Yeah.
I had a podcast guy on the show yesterday to give me some breaking news, and we quickly just typed it up, and we had
awesome.
There we go. RichIngram.com, the Leadville 100 Warriors and Quiet Waters. I invite Nation that are paying attention right now live to tune into Rich, give the support that you can, and support Rich's story. Rich, this was awesome, dude. Hope you come
Thank
back
you.
again.
Yeah. Absolutely, Keith. I appreciate you having me. It's been great.
This was a lot of fun. I feel this need to bring in guys like yourself and Mark Boer and Joseph Malone and my soldier friends that I've met over the last year to say, hey guys, can we just go kick around the table and tell war stories?
Let's just have a panel. Yeah.
100%. I would love to. Truthfully, we didn't talk PTSD. That makes me curious. Not in a negative way, but in a curious way. I have several more questions around that. I have several questions around your feelings about, if I may ask, and I won't ask to answer them right now, but just your feelings about just the military itself, the experience of being in it, and then all of a sudden instantly being out of it when you're supposed to be a part of it, and whether you feel supported, not supported, all those kinds of things that I get curious about when you wake up and make the decision to sign up. And then all of a sudden everything changes.
Yeah, we didn't even touch on the Army gave me a check and said, thank you for your service after I lost my arm. But I went back in. And
how does that work? Sorry. Yeah. So let's talk about that. So how does that work? So you, is it, no, it was, may I use the pun? Was it severance pay?
So that was a good one.
So I guess we'll make a sound clip here. So was it severance pay?
Yeah, so I did not receive severance pay, but I was retired. So it was medical retirement. And
yes. Okay. It's like saying, thanks for coming out. Here's your check.
Yeah. So at the time, you had to have some people had fought and gone back to their units at that time.
Okay.
But I wanted to be an officer. So after I was retired, I went back to college. We're still doing triathlon. And I know we got to wrap it up, so I'll be quick with it. But what happened was once I started competing in triathlon and against other able-bodied people with all their appendages, I said, why can't I go back in as an officer? And nobody had ever done that before. And so I was doing an internship in college with the state senator in Atlanta, Georgia. And he asked me, he's like, what do you want to do after college? I said, sir, I really want to go back in. And that's what started everything rolling. And at the end of the day, look, if you can meet a standard, there is no reason why you should not be able to go fight for your country. And that's what the Army ended up saying. I found myself in Washington, D.C. in front of General Kicklighter, a retired general that worked for President Bush at the time. He said, look, resubmit your packet, get back into ROTC and continue. And it wasn't easy. There were a lot of times where it was, Rich, we don't think this is going to happen. We'd love to keep you in the program. A lot of people balked at this. Had never happened before. Nobody had ever come out of retirement, or nobody had ever been an amputee and then commissioned as an officer in the Army. And so I didn't even get a call that I was going to commission until the night before college graduation. And I will say this, and this gives me chills every time that I say it. I got a call several weeks before that commissioning ceremony from a guy, and he said, Rich, why didn't you tell me this is what you're trying to do? I'm aide de camp to the general that has to sign your final waiver to commission. That guy who gave me that phone call was the same guy that asked me to be on his triathlon team.
Dude,
how nuts is that?
I just got goosebumps.
Yeah. And
honest to God.
Yeah, it's insane how that lined up for me. And so, yeah, we commissioned and was an engineer and did 3 more tours before I retired a second time.
Dude, man, Rich, why were you not allowed originally? Was that literally just an old school military policy, which was no, once you retired, and I'll crack a joke, just an old bureaucratic military policy made up by a bunch of old white guys one day back in the 1700s that said, no, once you're out, like, and nobody had ever asked the question again to say, can I come back? Is it as simple as that in many ways?
So the guys had come back, okay, lost their arm, especially it was more seen in special operations, and you did see it in the officer level, like Dave. Dave was
right.
He was an amputee. He lost his leg as an officer and then went back to his unit. So you had seen stuff like that, but you'd never seen the crossing over going from, I was enlisted and then I was so there was a whole new level of training that I had to go through. In order to do that training and to do the policy said you had to have all of your appendages. And so that's, I don't know. It is what it is, but we changed it. So I don't,
so to this day now, if somebody wants to re-enlist, the Rich Ingram rule comes into effect and Keith gets to go back in the military.
Yeah, pretty much. Look, at the end of the day, if you can meet a standard, that's
Yes.
it. And
Yes.
that's what we ended up saying. And I'm not an advocate for someone that can't meet a standard. I don't care if you're man, woman, trans, or
Yes. Yeah.
amputee. If you can
Yes.
meet the standard, dude, I don't care what color.
I'm with you. I am 1,000% there with you. Every human's welcome here. We got a standard, and off you go. Really,
That's it. That's it. Go fight, man. Like
100%. Yeah, yeah. Rich Ingram, I'm really fond of you, man. I really enjoyed our chat today.
Yeah.
I always say this: once a guest of the lab, you're now a friend of the lab. So, like my mom would always say, if you came over to mom's house, Rich, there's the fridge, there's the pantry. Go help yourself. I'm going to offer you the first things. After that, you've been in the house. Go help yourself.
There you go.
You got a story you got to tell. You got a book you want to promote. You got anything before you do the Leadville 100. If you want to come back on the show for a few minutes, I got a morning show now. You pop on in for a few minutes, grab a coffee with me and C Marty Fit and tell some stories, just like old school radio morning show. So,
that'd be awesome. Yeah.
But dude, you come back anytime. Please come back anytime. Come back in the morning. Come do a drive by. Say, hey, I'm driving to Leadville for the tour this weekend. I got a space for you, man. I do. I got a space for you. We'll create some content, promote it for you, help you promote, get your story about the Leadville 100 Warriors in Quiet Waters. So know that you have an advocate and a voice for you when you need it. Okay.
I appreciate it, Keith. Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm just going to ask you to hang tight in the green room while I say goodbye to Nation. Then I'll come back, walk you out. Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Hang tight. All right. There goes Rich Ingram. I am going to put on, what am I going to put on here? I think I'm going to put this tune on. Oh, this one here. No, there's no music there, but this one here. That one there. Yes. All right. Me and Rich wrapped it up. Here's something for you to consider today. The old saying that if you fall off your bike, you should just get back up on it and go again. It's true. If there's no better metaphor, we heard it today with Rich Ingram. If you lose your arm, go pick up a fishing rod because you can fish again. Listen, if you're tuning in right now, or you came in late, or you're sitting back at the end of the show and you're stuck, you have no reason to get going. Today's show gives you every reason to get up and get going. And as Rich said, get off the couch and get running. That's how it works, Nation. What a great conversation. Wow, I'm grateful. I am so grateful that I get to do this every single day. All right, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go walk Rich out of the lab so we can get into his truck and move. I know he's ready to move over to Austin. We're going to roll. We'll see you guys in the morning. Tomorrow we have a guest. Faraz is joining me and C Marty Fit tomorrow morning. Mornings in the lab, 8 o'clock Eastern time. We'll see you. We'll see you tomorrow, Nation.